Game begin.
Hello, Michael J.
Hello, Lanny Huang.
Uh, this is the day that I have been waiting for, the week that I've been waiting for.
Oh, you love Christmas. It's not for like 2 more weeks.
Okay. Uh, they
But
added
you can.
pre-modern. They added pre-modern to Magic Online. This is
No, they
gigantic
no, they
news.
didn't. They've had Premodern on Magic Online. Allegedly, y'all have been playing leagues for years.
I suppose that's true. They added pre-modern on-demand league support to Magic Online. So, for those who don't know, Magic Online is a platform that you can play Magic Online. You do indeed have to pay. You have to pay to own cards. You have to, or pay a rental service like Mana Traders, promo code LANNYNINY, to rent cards. And every now and then, Magic Online, which is operated by the company Daybreak, um, offers a all access pass that lets you have access to the cards. A lot has happened. The prices online have spiked. The activity in the league is crazy. I was playing earlier. It is like noon on a Thursday. Uh, I waited 30 seconds for a game. So by that structure, there's a lot of activity in the league compared to vintage or like standard. It takes like minutes to find a game sometimes. So that's a big difference. I mean, I don't know what the popper queues are like. I haven't peeked into one, but I know for a fact that, for instance, like standard on Magic Online is dead. So, and that's because people play standard on Arena. But in any case,
Are we going to talk about Standard? Because I broke Standard.
no, we're not talking about standard.
Are
You
you
can
sure?
you can talk about standard on your other podcasts.
My other podcast is about Pauper now.
Yeah, I don't
So
care. This podcast is about pre-modern, and this is the biggest news that has hit pre-modern, since the banning of land tax, I guess. Since Duress Crew took over LobsterCon organization, I don't even know. Like, this is gigantic news. In the last 4 days, there's probably been more matches of pre-modern played on Magic Online than there have been
in
the
the
entire
entire
year.
history.
History, I mean, it'll catch up to that. Um, if you've listened to other podcasts, you might know, or if you've been keep on the news, but if you like live under a rock, you get your news from us. There's a league. You jump into the queue, you find a match, you play 5 matches. It costs you $6. You can make back between 0 and like I don't know $9. It basically doesn't matter because we wipe our ass with $6. We're very privileged
Hold on a
Americans.
second, man. That's an expensive roll of toilet paper you got there. I could just give you regular toilet paper. That'd be a lot
I
cheaper than
mean,
six
with
bucks for wipe.
inflation, I would not be surprised if each sheet is going to come out to that much in the future. But in any case, this is gigantic news. More people playing pre-modern is big. This also has created a extremely large influx of exposure and interest into the format. Streamers are playing it. Um, People are talking about it on Twitter. This was the moment that many of the people who are like on the fence about trying the format can finally actually do it, right? So for the longest time, I was just like, "Hey, you should get into pre-modern. It's really cool. It's really fun." And people would just be like, "Well, I can't really play it because like they don't. There's no meetups in my areas. There's no events in my area." And now there is Magic Online, and you can just hop on, play a match. If you're brewing, you have some fun idea. Again, you can hop on, play a match. The
Who should I
competition.
be watching? So I my life changed substantially between the printing of like Final Fantasy and the printing of Avatar: The Last Airbender because Standard was so bad and so dead. All the people who I typically like to watch started doing stuff like streaming Brawl.
Yeah, I mean,
So I don't even know who to watch. I'm really excited.
I would watch Caleb Durward. He is somebody who's been playing pre-modern in the Wisconsin area for a few years, kind of just dabbling, just kind of ducking into events, and he's just an entertaining guy. So I highly recommend him. There's some YouTube videos that just about everybody is who has a YouTube channel is starting to put out. I believe Jarvis Yu started streaming it. I believe Misplaced Ginger has a leak up on YouTube that apparently was really funny because a lot of these people, you're like watching people enter the format for the first time, and
Oh, they're taking baby steps
they're just like triggering
into
Oath the
lava.
Druids left and right. Yeah. Uh,
I didn't see this, but my friend Bill Ellis said to me, it was like funny watching a streamer with goblins, like the first time they were playing against Oath of Druids, and thinking, "Oh, I just don't play any guys, and then I'm gonna like take a big turn." And then he was introduced to the cards Sphere of Resistance and Treetop Village, uh,
yeah.
and just never got off the ground.
Yeah, so I mean, people are going to be encountering all sorts. I mean, the tide thing is like hilarious for somebody who just like has no idea that it's about to happen. Um, Many people would say that this is a good reason for Tide not to be a thing, but I think this is how pre-modern is. Like
I'm
it is brutal and oppressive, and it is only the strong
stop.
should survive.
It's brutal
Um,
and impressive notes on his Magic the Gathering, man. We're gonna ban Fire Blast, Lightning Bolt, Swords to Plowshares, Counterspell, and Daze. But like, I think that black isn't strong enough. Let's take all the good cards away until black is the best. That's what we want to do? Moneyball
that's
Black
what
is the best.
that's what a lot of people want to do.
Yeah,
So
well,
Mike,
Moneyball Black is the best performing deck in contraption right now. So,
uh,
so
so
they can
I
shut up.
wanted to well you can't make that statement with any like veracity until you know what the population of the people playing the deck is.
It
But
has a lot of top finishes.
there are deck lists available now. So we used to just like go to TC decks. Now you can just look at a bunch of 5.0 deck
It
lists.
is
There's there's like a
exciting.
pyrostatic oath 5.0. There is a green white aggro 5.0 that's somebody who just like
Oh
was
my
into
god,
playing middle
I
school.
wanted to play that at League this week, but I only own one Anurid Brush Chopper in paper, I think. And I'm like, oh, I've been looking for something different to play. I mean, it's probably not very good, but but I
Dude,
was excited for a second
I have all the Annured Rush Hoppers that you
in
need. So
paper.
let me know next time. Yeah. Next time we
So,
see each other, which is Sunday. So that's crazy. Mike, I
oh
want
my God,
to
Sunday. This is so ridiculous. So I know we're not going to talk about standard. I'm just going to talk about a mistake I almost made, right? So I did been doing well in standard in Magic the Gathering Arena where standard isn't dead. I made mythic, and then I'm doing even though I made mythic, I'm doing pretty well. So I kept playing because you made fun of me. And so I'm doing better than I was when I started. And I'm like, I'm doing so well. There's an RCQ on Sunday. Even though I promised Lanny I would quit trying to do this stupid crap, I'm going to price this deck out, and I think I can next day the whole deck and win the RCQ on Sunday while my deck is still good because I'm playing a rogue deck. And then you reminded me that we have a meetup at Andy's house, and I would just actually much rather hang out with my friends. So I'm going to do that instead.
yeah, hang out with friends is better than RCQs. And even so, I would rather stay at home and play pre-modern on Magic Online. Um, I think I'm going to do the following. I mean, I actually don't know how I'm going to edit this, but maybe I'll just figure it out. Because um, I wanted to just pull up the pre-modern guide and use the next 40 minutes to make this an episode that we can link to tell people who are new to the format what is going on. Um, and then obviously we can react to the news and do whatever, but I think I want to be able to tell people, who are interested in pre-modern, if you want to watch a video about it, we should do
Why don't we
that.
just start the episode over and just call this a
Yeah.
guide
Well,
to
so
pre-modern for new players? And then
the audio feed will have like the people who listen to our podcast will have the Michael J and Laney that they love, but I'm going to post on YouTube a separate thing. And yeah, it'll be like a pre-modern introduction starting now. Hello, Michael J. For the people who don't know us, we play lots of pre-modern, and you might be new to pre. Hold on, I have to start over. I need to make my background not look like shit because of how nasty my room is. Okay.
my apartment is
Hello.
actually clean. I cleaned it.
All
I'm
right.
going to unblur. Normally, I have it on blur, but I'm going to unblur it because I don't know how to unblur it. Never mind. But my apartment is clean. I cleaned it all. I have guests coming over.
Okay, nine. So it starts around 10 minutes. Hello and welcome to the Lanny Huang Spike Colony YouTube channel. If you are here, I'm hoping it's because obviously either you subscribe or you are new to Premodern because you heard about it because it is now on Magic Online. And I would like to formally introduce you to Premodern. I'm here with Michael J. Flores. Both of us basically only play Premodern, and we've been playing for several years. And we love the format, and we hope you will too. Hello, Michael J.
Why would you say I only play pre-modern? I am a famous
I
Magic
said
the
I said
Gathering
mostly only
player.
play pre-modern. What is pre-modern? Pre-modern is a closed, non-rotating Magic the Gathering format that features cards from the fourth edition through Scourge, so 1995 to 2003. Mostly old frame cards that were printed after Fallen Empires. There is a separate ban list and it is a non-rotating format. So it's basically the same format that it was a few years ago with
There's
a
no
few
pre-modern horizons.
yeah,
There's no Lord of the pre-modern.
with a few bans and unbans. I'm going to just kind of freewheel this. There's a lot of ways to dive into the format. I think you could definitely go to Premodern, www.premodern.guide, and you will see an excellent guide. And we'll kind of use that as a framework, but I'm going to skip over some stuff because the first question that people ask is, what is the metagame? So, like, I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot to figure out first, but if you're familiar with like some of these old decks, like Replenish or Goblins or Burn has always been a deck. Those are decks. The Rock is a deck. People don't play it as much. There are decks that are somewhat novel in pre-modern, like Survival Elves, which is similar to an Elves deck, but different because it has Survival of the Fittest as an engine. And Replenish works under different rules now than it did in the past due to erratas. And Phyrexian Dreadnought and Phyrexian Devourer to boot also work differently under modern rules. So to tag another FAQ, pre-modern uses modern rules. That's why we can play it on Magic Online. So no damage on the stack, and no like, and there is a stack. There's not like interrupts and whatnot, and you don't wait till end of phases for you to die. Random stuff like that. But yeah, so Mike, what are the best decks in pre-modern right now? I named a
Wow,
bunch of
that
them, but what are the best ones?
so actually let me just create some context for a second, for especially people from the outside looking in for the first time. I actually recorded an episode about pre-modern with Patrick Chapin for another podcast that just hasn't gone up yet. And he was incredulous to me that among the pre-modern community, that mono blue Dreadnought is considered to be the best deck along with Replenish. And so if you're on the outside looking in, you might just assume that the red deck is the best deck because it is the most popular deck. Um, it is not the best deck. It is a good deck, but the best decks in pre-modern, I think, loosely are again Dreadnought variants. Typically, mono blue Dreadnought is the most popular,
Yeah,
and
and
there are
this
at
is
least
this is combining Phyrexian Dreadnought, a 1 mana 12/12 with a drawback. It's a 1 mana artifact 12/12 with a drawback, but
with
you
trample.
stifle, yeah, 1 mana 12/12 trample with a drawback, but you stifle the drawback or you vision charm it to avoid the drawback, which is it has to sacrifice 12 power and creatures, which of course you never have. This deck has lots of cantrips and counterspells, so it's just a hyper consistent combo control deck, sometimes with alternate plans. We won't go too into it. Replenish is basically like a big reanimator deck. You can loot a bunch of these powerful synergistic enchantments into your yard and return them all with a replenish. These days, I am close but not quite ready to say that Elves is occupying the same air as Dreadnought and Replenish. I would say not quite because I'm sort of waiting for
So
Elves to
I,
see
I
its
think
full potential.
I think let me just give my 2 cents, and then you could tell me where you disagree. I think the best decks in the abstract are Dreadnought and Replenish, and that there are a bunch of decks that are largely contextually driven, right? Elves would be one of the best decks. I think I would tend to agree with you,
I,
except
I
it is
kind of want to just stop you right there and not get too into the weeds on particulars with
No,
this,
but it's
right?
deeply held in check
Because
by the metagame.
I think if you're new to Premodern and you pick up any of these decks, they are going to feel more powerful than the next group of decks, which
Sure.
include a lot of nostalgic variants like the Rock, Landstill. There is even an Ernemgeddon style deck, and then we would be remiss not to mention Oath of Druids based decks. If you come from Vintage, you should be familiar a little bit with Oath of Druids. We don't put in giant monsters with Oath of Druids. We put in giant tramplers that can be easily removed from the battlefield in the form of Terravor, or prison creatures in the form of Shard Phoenix or Ancestors Chosen. And then finally, there are blue based control decks that abuse the card Parallax Tide, which exiles lands in a one-sided. It's a one-sided plague win for your opponent's lands. It exiles 5 lands, and they never come back so long as you're using Parallax Tide in conjunction with Stifle or Chain of Vapor. So just control decks, they plod along, and then they just slam the door on you with
Then
Parallax
there's
Tide. Uh,
red decks,
yeah, and then there's
uh,
burn decks and beatdown decks. Yeah,
and goblin decks, um,
and then
then
like
there are like
black mid range. There's like black
there
dark
are a
ritual
lot of tier
decks.
2 decks that
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can play, right? Like black white mid range, black white control.
There's
Um,
Psychotog, which is a huge nostalgia deck. That's kind of a fun combo control situation. You just have your controlling the board until you just like have a Wonder or a Psychotog, and then you just kind of use Psychotog combined with Gush or Factor Fiction as a fireball effect. I should mention that Gush is legal in the format. Force of Will and Brainstorm are not legal in the format. Armageddon is legal in this format. Um, I mentioned Oath of Druids and I mentioned Survival of the Fittest. So to some extent, this format is a space for refugees from legacy bannings to play some fun cards that are banned in Legacy. Unfortunately, Entomb is banned in Pre-Modern, even though it just caught the ban in Legacy. But stuff like Frantic Search and Tinker are completely fair in Pre-Modern. They do good things, but
Survival of
not
the Fittest is banned in Legacy.
Hermit Druid is another big one. There's a Hermit Druid all non-basic land style combo deck. It is, again, good but not great.
There's
So
3 Hermit Druid
yeah, yeah.
uh,
So there's a lot of
no basic
fun
combo
things.
decks.
There is a breakfast port, and so there's lots of fun things you can do in pre-modern. So Mike, where can you find deck lists for pre-modern?
Wow, we historically have gone to a place called TC Decks that to get our deck lists, but you can get them on Magic Online, ntgo.com now.
Yeah,
Under
mtgo.com is going to be a
under
fun source of deck
contraption.
lists. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
For now. To mention a little bit more about the announcement that Premodern is coming sort of temporarily to contraption seems to suggest that as the format continues in popularity, it will have kind of full adoption where there may be a permanent space in the Magic Online client to play some form of pre-modern. Maybe it's a friendly $6 league, maybe it's a competitive $10 league, and maybe if just enough people want to play the format, there will be weekend Swiss tournaments in pre-modern, which I for one would be really excited to see. Um, so yeah, you can also find deck lists on MTG Top 8, and now that there's a publishing thing, I assume that Goldfish is going to start scraping pre-modern deck lists. It sort of already low-key does, but that's another thing.
I think
Mike,
that if you want to think about pre-modern like globally, like it's highly contrasted relative to what a contemporary Magic player is probably used to. Like if they're you talked about refugees from Legacy, and a fair amount of the community is players have been playing longer. Like you said, most of the cards are old border cards when we see play. But if you think about contemporary Magic, especially post Fire Design, you typically see very powerful permanents. Like an emblematic permanent in the Age of Fire Design is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Or you might have any number of 2/1 creatures for 1 mana that have 2 to 3 additional abilities. I promise you that Jackal Pup, which is a 2/1 for 1 with a severe drawback, is the scariest offensive creature in pre-modern. It
next to
is
Goblin Lackey, but
okay. Goblin Lackey is also
but
there are some
yeah,
good one drops in
yeah.
pre-modern.
You will find the pace of gameplay and the vibe of pre-modern to be like dramatically different if you're used to contemporary Magic. The games are long and grindy. The edges are much more thin. There are some lopsided matchups, but
But the
overall,
the
there's
bigger thing, other than permanents, creatures in particular, being less powerful or less, I think, compacted, how much you're getting for the mana that you're putting into them. The bigger thing in pre-modern is that the quality of answers is incredibly high, and you are probably not used to answers this good. Hydroblast, Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, Blue Elemental Blast, Swords to Plowshares are are all staples of the format. Things that have a dramatic effect or generate a huge amount of leverage for a single mana. Two
Yeah, we
mana
also we
spells,
also have Counterspell and Daze.
but 2 mana spells will often have a game-winning ability combined with the text draw a card. So Abeyance and Gaia's Blessing would be examples of cards that just solely win the game when you play them in certain
Okay,
contexts.
that's a
Also say
little,
draw a
Mike.
card.
That's little bit too deep, and also untrue. But we're not going to get too into that.
It's not
The
untrue.
those cards are really powerful, but they also but also there is literally like the card divination is not in pre-modern. Like we have deep analysis and we have factor fiction. We don't
Who
have
needs divination when we have
uh,
factor fiction
we
and
don't
caution?
have
AK?
we don't have cryptic command. They've printed some powerful spells now, but we have a lot of efficient stuff. We have counterspell and source of plowshares, and disenchant and naturalize are staples of the format. But yeah, I don't want to get too into it. Once you start playing pre-modern, you will understand very quickly that it's different when you don't have planeswalkers and you don't have 5/5s for two. Um, or one, or whatever, 3/3 draw a card for whatever, like, or 3 mana make 7 creatures and draw 2 cards, like random stuff like that. We have like cool things. We have little tricks. We have Deranged Hermit and Recurring Nightmare. If you remember uh, that kind of Rexer type style deck that exists in pre-modern. We have Enchantress, which is a deck that's seen some play in Legacy, and many people are nostalgic for. So there are some engine cards, but they obviously pale in comparison to stuff like Artist's Talent and Gran and Urza Saga and the
You're
One Ring.
like I
Um,
was saying, Lanny, we're literally getting less for permanence relative to how much
I,
mana
I
you're
I
putting
wasn't
them.
disagreeing with
You
you.
just listed 4 permanents, one of which costs 0 mana,
I wasn't
right?
disagreeing with you.
So
Uh, what happens with the band list? The band list is curated by the creator of the pre-modern format, Martin Berlin. He is this Swedish dude who is extremely level-headed and rational with regards to bannings. He generally has a light touch. There have been um, a few notable ban list changes, but none of them have been seismic, with basically the exception of the banning of land tax. And I guess many would argue the banning of Yawgmoth's Bargain,
which was
several years
before
ago
either of us started
was a
playing,
big deal. There was an unbanning of Show and Tell, and
that
that's
had no
pretty
effect on
much,
the format.
yeah, that's pretty much all the action that the ban list has seen. In the future, if bans are needed, Martin Berlin almost certainly will act. There is controversy around some of the play experiences of Parallax Tide. Some argue that it's too powerful, but basically, if your question is, will my deck get banned out of the format? In all likelihood, it won't. Look, the market is a real force. If Parallax Tide does get banned from pre-modern is large enough that all of the value that the card Parallax Tide carries is mostly going to vanish. I guess this is a good time to note that in Paper Magic, you can play pre-modern often with gold bordered World Championship cards that are less expensive than their tournament legal counterparts, because pre-modern is unsanctioned, and as a result, proxy friendly or gold border friendly events are common. If pre-modern succeeds and continues to be very reliant on reserveless cards, notably Guy's Cradle, Mox Diamond, Intuition, the replenish cards.
Phyrexian Dreadnought.
Um, yeah, and Phyrexian Dreadnought. I hope to see what we see in Vintage with like 15 proxy events. Because yeah, as this grows, the supply does not grow alongside it. What is the community like, Mike?
The community is one of the major draws, although if you're a newcomer to the format, which I think a lot of the people consuming this piece of content might be newcomers, there's probably like multiple generations of players that you might be cognizant of. I think largely it's an incredibly welcoming community who mostly care about what's in front of them, like what they're doing. Some of the players are extremely highly skilled, but they're more like of the vibe of let's have a beer while we're playing Magic than of the vibe of I want to rip your throat out and drink your blood, right? Like
Yeah.
so, like if you're used to a tournament where people are baring their teeth to tear each other's throats out, that you're not going to find that in pre-modern, and in fact, it is quite unwelcome.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
from a community standpoint, I think that there are probably like three and a half different communities that you'll find now, especially with the potential influx of people from Magic Online. Like, Premodern was created by Martin Berlin, like Lanny said, and it started with a core of people that grew over the pandemic, largely playing in webcam leagues with one another, paper cards and webcam leagues, and it was very much a community first and a format second. And I think a lot of the initial seed of the players playing pre-modern from that era were nostalgic for something, right? I would argue later that I'm not sure what they were actually nostalgic for, because I came in around 2000. When did I come in? 2003.
21.
I came in 21.
Yeah.
Wait, no, 2022 was my first LobsterCon top eight, right? Is that
Right. So
right?
you
Yours was
started 20 the year before, yeah. You started
okay.
like
So
in the fall period before that, and then I started in the next fall, yeah.
yeah, so when I started playing, I played because some of my friends were playing, right? So Brian Kowal and Brian Manalakos, who are you might have heard
Old
of them. Brian
heads.
Brian Manalakos has the All Things Considered podcast. He was a member of Team Sped in the '90s, and Brian Kowal is an old teammate of mine at Cabal Rogue and Righteous Babe. And he's a notable store owner in the Midwest. He has Misty Mountain Games. They were playing in a tournament called LobsterCon, and we were coming out of the pandemic. I hadn't seen any human beings, so I wanted to try. So then I came in and played, and I found out that the gameplay was just the best. Uh, I've played all the eras of Magic, right? So I played standard when there was still restricted cards. I played in the Pro Tour in three different decades, and all the different kind of tournaments you could play in, FNMs, casual, group game, 20-person group games. Pre-modern has the best actual gameplay of any format I ever played, and LobsterCon in 2022 was the first time I'd ever played a pre-modern tournament. And I guess it depends what you care about. The thing that I liked the best about it was, as someone who plays a lot of contemporary Magic, it is sometimes frustrating that whoever wins the die roll tends to have a dramatic advantage in contemporary Magic, and not just in best of one on Magic Arena, right? Like there's formats like Modern and Pioneer that incredible correlation between winning the die roll and winning a match. I lost every die roll at LobsterCon that year, and I didn't lose a match until the top four. So I
Yeah.
felt very
And
satisfied
LobsterCon,
in
for those listening, is the
in
North
the game I
American Pre-Modern Championships, which is held every year in Boston. If you are catching this video close to its publishing, the sign up for the next one goes up on December 14th. So
It's 3 days from
definitely
now, right?
definitely
So
head to Dress Crew on all of the social media websites to look for a link to that if you're interested in playing Paper Pre-Modern. This is extremely fun, sort of GP style event where 300 players are going to get together and duke out Pre-Modern with side events and tons of fun stuff like that.
it will certainly sell out within 24 hours of the doors opening. So I think depending on when you see this, you should. We're all going to be together. Our friend group's all going to
Yeah.
be together, and we're going to sign up together.
In any case, I think I wanted to kind of add another thing about the community vibe, which is just that it is about having fun and about fostering and building community. There are some people who think that pre-modern's expanding tent could bring in some undesirable force of competitiveness or a lack of familiarity with, our customs, Lisan al-Gaib style. Uh, but I am here to say if you're watching this, I encourage you, even if you're online, to be nice to your opponents, be gracious, and we have a policy that's don't be a D. I don't want to get censored by YouTube, so just don't be a bad guy. And rules enforcement at the casual level is often the case where we just do takebacks. We play with revealed cards face up. stuff like that. I encourage everyone to who jumps into paper to, continue those trends because that's what makes Magic fun. We tend not to play for crazy pricing, although that's not always the case. Um, we don't do big cash tournaments as often. We tend to do more charity tournaments. We tend to do more silly and fun prizes like cards or signed and altered cards. Signed and
Or
altered cards
giant
and
gold championship belts.
yeah, novelty, novelty trophies and belts. And so this is kind of the vibe of pre-modern. And
I
in many ways, this kind of segues into the next point, which is just that how good of is pre-modern as like a competitive
oh, I can
Magic style vehicle.
I can just kind of add on some of the things Lanny said. From a community standpoint, I do think there is a divide between the people who came before the first Paper Lobster Con tournaments and those that came after. The ones who came before, I think, were more part of Martin's like actual circle, and they tend to care about things like the printing of the cards that you're playing with. But like Lanny said already, this is a very welcoming
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
Yeah, so
There are you will encounter people who have been with pre-modern through different stages. There's inner circle, which is like that's just crazy. That's just like OGs, like wrote like the cave painting like initial drawings. There's very little record of that because they were just playing at each other's houses or at old school events in between rounds in Sweden. The big wave was webcam supportive play, where the webcam leagues would have upwards of 50 to 70 people playing over webcam. We had 50 to 70 people within 2 hours, like on Magic Online. But this was a different time. And so that was a really tight knit community that came from all across the world. And then the paper championships and the proliferation of both community supported online play via the Community Pre-Modern Series Online, which volunteers basically set up a online league that was like coordinated in the freeform rooms of Magic Online, as well as TOs in scenes where there would be meetups and leagues. They eventually started doing bigger and bigger Swiss tournaments, and we started a podcast called the Spike Colony Podcast. And there was lots of stuff going on, and that is to say that if you live in a major metropolitan city in America, Spain, maybe Italy, Germany for sure, Sweden, and then if you like live in London or maybe specific parts of Finland, and also in Melbourne, many major cities have pre-modern scenes, which is to say, and yeah, I kind of wanted to like kind of cap this all with like Premodern is extremely fun because it is a good competitive outlet and a competitive vehicle because the Magic gameplay is really good. But I also want to add that like I do not care that the format won't change. Like I do not care that at some point, a lot of people like to think that there's going to be a switch that is flipped when the format is solved. To me, we're just going to slowly march towards, more and more solved states, right? As we uncover like the relative improvements of each deck, like that's one less thing to uncover. So in the last year, we put Parallax Tide in Dreadnought sideboards. Then we put accumulated knowledge in Dreadnought main decks. And then we cut some number of
and
gushes and put
they both
Thwarts in.
leave
Yeah,
to
yeah.
some degree. Like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
Dreadnought decks have neither,
They
and then
come
they
back
win the
and
biggest
but
tournaments.
but the point is these things have been uncovered. One of my pet decks I used to play Grotog. You would play zero Swords of Plowshares, and now you play four. And now maybe you'll go back to zero, but like what it looks like when you play four. You know what the Elves deck looks like now that it had Survival of the Fittest. Things get discovered, and that they can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So Premodern will march towards more and more that has been figured out, and less there is to figure out. But I make this analogy all the time. If you had a shelf that had like all the some odd thousands of cards of pre-modern, 4 copies of each, and you sold it as a board game, it would be the best board game to ever exist. 95 to 2003 Magic is just a really incredible time. It's almost by accident because in many ways these are design mistakes, but all of the design mistakes sort of fit together in a mosaic where
To
they're
be
all kind of
fair,
like
along with a banned list.
Along with the ban list.
Okay, so
No demonic consultation,
so
unfortunately. No
so
balance.
I think like Lanny and I never played through an era where there was Yawgmoth's Bargain, for example. I played in a tournament that Yawgmoth's Bargain was legal. Lanny won a tournament where Yawgmoth's Bargain was legal. I'm pretty sure there's 100% win rate correlation to resolving a Yawgmoth's Bargain.
Yeah.
Right? So
Unless
we
you're at
don't
one life, yeah.
we don't have that card anymore, right? So I saw a quip, uh, a very cynical quip, which is just like, oh, pre-modern is not durable. You know, once you get a real deck designer like Sam Black to come in, the format is ruined instantaneously. That is true. Asterisk. Sam exploited a card that should have been banned and was he really took it over the finish line. He did our podcast right after he won a tournament with Lantax and one Phyrexian Dreadnought, and I likened it to jumping the shark. Right, Happy Days was
There's
already
there's
in.
there's there's lots of dreadnoughts in there. There's one Oath Druids, but I don't want to get too into that. The
But so
Lantax got banned. People do hack at this format. I mean, I will add this: like, if you are listening to this and or watching this, and you don't like how pre-modern sounds, or you're worried about how, the fact that it's a closed format, like, I'm basically here to say, like, those things are real, and I don't worry about them, and neither should you, unless you really, really care about playing with newly released cards and like building new decks and shifting metagames, because pre-modern isn't that. I'm not trying to sell it as
actually,
that.
I'm going to disagree with Lanny. Pre-modern has been more dynamic with more new deck design innovation in the last 2 years than I could have ever possibly predicted. And now that we're seeing decks come out on the contraption leagues, there are a ton of decks that I've never even thought of playing in
I
pre-modern that I
I
find very
don't want to. I don't think it's necessary to argue like the level of dynamism of pre-modern, because when compared to a format that gets new cards every 6 weeks, it is obviously not as dynamic. And if you like that, pre-modern isn't for you. But like, I'm here to tell you that one, many people dislike that, right? Many people dislike buying new Magic cards, reading new Magic cards, trying to figure out if what th're holding in their hands even is a Magic card. So if those are things that you feel, pre-modern is like great for that. Uh,
I think
you
there are
know,
people who
and
are disillusioned by investing, let's say, $400 on an imprint card, and then that card gets banned within 3 to 6 months, which is a very common occurrence in the post-fire design era. It's
yeah,
going to happen again in the next few weeks, right?
To,
So
to your point earlier, if you're open to pre-modern, you will find that it is a lot more dynamic than you expected, right? Contemporary formats also feel like, 3 or 5 deck if we're lucky formats, but pre-modern you generally don't see top eights where it's a lot of the same deck. Some might argue that in the future, now that we have Magic Online, that you're going to see that, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to have to wait for that to come. Um, but all this is to say, like, I think that a lot of the format is solved stuff doesn't come from within, right? It comes from people outside just sort of assuming things, and like generally they weren't interested in the first place because that's their assumption about the format. If you're on the fence and this is like one thing that you're sort of thinking about, like, just give it a try and you'll see, and then you can play it until you're bored of it, and then maybe you'll play it until you're bored of it, and then you'll play your other Magic or whatever, and then you'll be like, you'll have some idea. You're like, oh, you'll see an old card, and you'll be like, wait, is that pre-modern legal? Can I build around that? And then you can just dip back into the format. It's not really designed to be a format. I mean, for me, it captures nearly 100% of my Magic attention, but it's as a format, it's not designed to do that for everyone. And if I'm only asking for you to keep an open mind and play it as long as you're still having fun. If you jump into pre-modern and somebody turn one Sphere of Resistance to you and then Stone Rains every other land that you play, and you just decide that you don't want that to ever happen to you, alongside one-sided Armageddons, turn 2 12/12s, and Oath of Druids triggers, then yeah, pre-modern is not for you. But if you enjoy those kinds of puzzles,
that is that is certainly less likely to happen to you than your opponent just going first turn Llanowar Elf, second turn Badger Mole Cub, uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is like much worse and much more common. than the parlays
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Manny
I mean,
described.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, look, in the future, the prices are going to change, the meta is going to change, the communities are going to change. Like new people are going to like honestly, like you, dear viewer, are going to decide what the fate of pre-modern looks like, and I hope that you carry on the vibe that the scene has had so far, and
Can
I
I
think
just
it's a really
share
great
some
place
of
to
the
be.
things I like about Premodern? I've been playing a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
longer than you. Number one, it is the best gameplay. So, how do you define the best gameplay? I was at a legacy tournament this past weekend, and somebody there was like, I don't like Prem. I don't want to try Premodern." And other people were like, "You're kind of crazy. Have you ever actually tried Premodern?" I don't like it. And I was like, "Well, what is it that you don't like about it?" And then they proceeded to say a bunch of things that probably aren't factually accurate. But well, what do you do like? We're like, I like to do powerful things. Well, turn one 12/12 with double free spell backup seems pretty powerful to me. But um, if somebody's coming from CEDH or whatever, their conception of what powerful is might be different. I come from a place where I want the world to make sense, right? So I want to be it from a place where if you put in more time and more effort and more strategy, you have a greater likelihood of winning, but not too much, right? So if you're at like 95%, you're playing like chess, and that's boring. That's not magic. When we see win rates correlated to skill that are above 90%, we see format constriction. I think pre-modern is in a really great spot where it's in maybe the 70% range, which means that you get rewarded a lot for putting in time and playing better, but not all the time, right? So SWB, our friend Stephen Whitebush, doesn't win every match. He just wins the vast
He
majority.
just wins 70% of them,
No, he
which
wins
is
about 78%,
yeah,
which is a little high, but
yeah, it seems
but
a
he
little
doesn't win
high,
all
but
of them,
yeah,
right?
it's a format with lots of skill expression and sort of minute skill expression as well. So there
True.
is both the fact that your ability to pilot your deck into other decks has a more pronounced effect on the outcome of the game, and matchups are less like lopsided, both like how decks play into each other thanks to how powerful sideboard cards are, and additionally because there aren't any like there aren't I wouldn't say there aren't any, but there are much fewer game defining cards that you can cast. Like don't get me wrong, Fire
No,
Extinct Dreadnought, Oath of
no,
Druids,
let
and
me.
Survival of the Fittest can define a game, but not in the same way that
But they don't
Fable
define
does.
all the games, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So if you compare this with standard right now, you're going to see and there's a standard is a pretty big card pool. They printed more cards in the last 12 months than they printed in the entire decade of the 1990s. Um, there's a lot of cards in standard, but most of the games are going to revolve around Llanowar Elf into Badger Mole Cub or some combination of lessons and Storm Chaser's talent. And then not a whole lot of other things, right? Like so, some Storm Chaser's talent lessons decks might have red, and some Badger Mole Cub Llanowar Elf decks might have another color, and some might not. They have a different top end, but the things that they're centered around are really like basically two poles, right? There are a couple more poles. There's some Demir decks, there's some control decks, there's some mill decks, but the vast majority of all the action is defined around these two things. In pre-modern, you have some things that are really powerful. Like nobody's going to try to pretend that a first or second turn Phyrexian Dreadnought is not really powerful, right? Uh, I would argue that the full when somebody pulls off the replenish combo, that's more powerful than anything you'll see in standard. Basically, all of your opponent's permanents will disappear, and you have infinite vigilance, right? But those are very different from one another. And you have beatdown decks that have Fire Blast. You have beatdown decks that have Giant Growth. You have mid-range decks that just like, there's full of good cards and can answer things. You have Prison and Pillow Fort decks that just go wide on the battlefield. The array of different experiences is incredibly wide, and that's one of the things that I like about it the best. One week I might be playing Psychotog, the next week I might be playing Senior Stompy, and when you think about that, Senior Stompy rewards a very different cluster of play skills and experiences than Psychotog does. And Psychotog and Dreadnought are actually kind of related, right? They're both Gush counterspell decks with a defining powerful threat, but they're quite different from one another, right? So uh, Dreadnought rewards opening hand evaluation and mulligan discipline. Psychotog rewards math, right? Like in kind of the mid game, or like finding a spot where you can stick a singleton wonder, like the kinds of skills that are rewarded in the format, and the ability to punish opponents with if you have a plethora of skills. It's actually very different than in any contemporary formats. And I think that the power of sideboard cards is one thing, but the thing that I think is a little bit more subtle is that while we have powerful cards and defining cards in pre-modern, the balance of how good the cards are versus how good the player is reversed from contemporary Magic. So in contemporary Magic, I think both are important, but how good the cards are is much more dramatically important. Who goes first is much more dramatically important. Secondary, you have play skill. In pre-modern, you have primary play skill, and then how you wield that play skill, whether it's with Jackal Pups, replenishes, if you have a main deck or two main deck Phyrexian Furnaces, if you have Oath of Druids and which Oath cards you have to supplement Oath of Druids is secondary to how good the player is. And you can see that the top pre-modern players, when they're tested in big arenas, will be rewarded with everything from Hermit Druid combo decks to fluctuator decks that have no lands that come into play, untapped, replenish one week, enchantress the next week, and red deck is still the most popular. Right? So you have this huge array of different experiences, and that's one of the things I like most about it. The other thing that you'll find if you get deep into our community is that people, I think, more than in other formats, or at least more than other formats that I've experienced, love the experience of the cards and the aesthetic of the cards, maybe greater than how much they love playing the game. And playing the game is awfully great. So Lanny will talk about himself as like he's like a Groatog main, right? Like if he doesn't know what to do, he'll play Groatog. He made a new deck and it's just Groatog with Weathered Wayfarer, right? Like it's like he has like an affinity to these cards, even though he's a very strong strategic player. He has an affinity to certain cluster of cards. The thing that I've come to like, I used to be a famous deck designer. Lanny makes fun of me because I never make new decks anymore, but I love making physical decks. I love collecting the cards and taking a picture of the cards and getting blinged out art. And I feel like I'm customizing something, even if David Raska or Sam Black designed the deck instead of me. And I feel something from that that makes me love the game in a way that's different from the other 30 years I was playing the game. And I never felt that before. And as a result, I've become a better customer than I ever was before. I used to joke, I played pretty consistently on the Pro Tour for 10 plus years. I cared all the time. I never quit playing. People who are my age typically quit playing when they had kids and came back, or they quit playing and didn't come back. I never quit playing. Even when I wasn't playing professionally, I still played dozens of hours of Magic Online every week, but I never was a good customer. Now I'm a great customer because I love collecting the cards. And I feel something, and I love having extra decks so that I can loan them to someone when we go to league. I always bring an extra deck so that if there's a new person who wants to try the format, I can hand them a powerful deck and they can feel something like I felt something. The other thing is, this is very personal. You might not have this. I feel like pre-modern has caused me to catalyze and appreciate male friendships in a way that I never had in my life before now. And I'm, almost 5 decades old. So it's like wonderful. Like I always had proteges or young players who, I help take up, oftentimes tune them to be professional level players. But I have those still, and I have old heads, and I have people who are like Lanny's 2 decades younger than I am, probably, is one of my best friends, and like it's such an enriching experience in a way that other kinds of Magic have never been for me. And like I said, I started playing in 94 and I never quit playing. And I played all the ways you can play. I played in pizza places on Thursday nights and LGSs on Friday nights. I played 20-person group games. Y'all commander people with your 4-person group games, try a 20-person group game. That's what we used to do in the 90s, okay? With no sleeves. Um, And I played on the many pro tours and Grand Prix, and I took Magic very seriously for a big part of my. I think I still take Magic seriously. I just maybe I'm a little less sweaty at the table than I once was, but I love it. I love it in a way that I never loved any other kind of Magic. And my collection is beautiful, and you can look at my deck picks, and you'll see what I love about it
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
can't
I mean, I
stop
will
it.
add there's a little bit of a deck pick culture. So, choosing good printings and taking photos of decks is extremely fun. And yeah, echoing everything that you said, like I've played lots of different kinds of Magic, and I was in high school around the pre-modern era, and pre-modern takes me back to that time. So there's tons of nostalgia, but I wasn't, playing at nearly the same cards or skill I was at that time. Um, but it does feel like there's a different air about pre-modern. I think, it's pretty special. And, I think we've kind of covered the meat. I think you can kind of follow links around the internet, find some videos, find some deck lists, whatever kind of Magic you like to consume. If you like podcasts, you can listen to Spike Colony podcasts. You can listen to the Hardcast. If you like just buying cards and going to play with them, promo code Flores on Cool Stuff Inc. And of course, check out your local scene for any events. I kind of wanted to, now that we kind of got the business out of the way, um, almost meander through some of the random things that you brought up. Because yeah, there's a lot of people are kind of curious about the future, and some of them are extreme doomers that they think that this is somehow going to ruin pre-modern because either the volume of play is going to increase way too much and the format's going to get solved,
Yeah.
or
So what? Like you said,
Wizard,
it
yeah,
would be the
yeah,
best. It would be the best board game ever. Um, I think
or
there are a lot of ways that Wizards can come in without disrupting the format's card pool and can still recognize it. I think that if this blows up on Magic Online or the momentum is sustained at its current level, it's much more popular than many of the other league types that are available and are seeing support. I think that would be wonderful if Wizards did stuff to make the format more available to people. And I'm someone whose collection would be impacted by that, right? So,
right. So
like, I
like
used to have a lot of
if
$50
they've
wastelands. Now they're $5
yeah, if
wastelands.
they've reprinted certain cards in old frame or gold border, many people joke that like, oh, they're going to do pre-modern Horizons, and the joke back to that is they
But
did do
you,
pre-modern Horizons. It was called Dominaria Remastered, and old border Terravores, which are like $10, or they'll probably be $20 by the end of this call. Can be had for 15 cents if you get them from Dominaria Remastered. They've reprinted Call the Herd. They did Magic 30th edition, which was not a good thing that many people agreed with. But hey, if you're gonna do it, might as well do it with Cradle and and Mox Diamond while you're
no, no,
at
no,
it.
no.
If
Don't do it with Cradle and Mox
if
Diamond. Other cards is okay.
if the reserve list is going to mean nothing to Wizards of the Coast in the future, that's only going to benefit pre-modern players. But I actually kind of wanted to like talk about sort of a random subtle thing that people don't really discuss of just like, okay, well, what if a lot of people play pre-modern and Wizards starts designing different play environments that are good? Like, 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 what if, okay, so they can't really like release. We asked Sam this question one time. I was just like, like we like Magic. Some of us like game design. Pre-modern has like a lot of good game design lessons in it. A lot of them are bad. I think Armageddon's probably a difficult card to print into your card game where like the primary audience is commander players or whatever. So like generally speaking, I think people who like pre-modern like a really heavy play experience
I was
and
in a I was in a game design meetup last week. And there were a lot of professional game designers there who didn't necessarily know me. Like, I was friends with someone who was throwing the meetup, so I came and I was just talking to people who are in the game design space, and they're like, "Well, how do you know so and so?" And I'm like, "Well, we know each other from Magic." And they're like, "Oh, I really love Magic." The thing that I love about Magic is how flexible it is. You can play it this way, or you can play it with four players. And I said, it's actually not flexible at all in the way that you said. And they're like, of course it is. They keep doing this. I'm like, They keep annihilating the primary use case of Magic and destroying secondary market value instantaneously after they've created it. What they're doing is a roller coaster of unregulated securities. This is not a good use case, and it's hard for
It was for 15 to 20 years.
so
Yeah.
it's hard for people who actually don't think about the math to accept this. I'm like, this is actually quite bad. Like
Okay,
the things that
so
no, I'm going to get to a place that I'm going to get to, but it's not flexible in the way that you are saying, right? It is the greatest strategy game of all time. It is, and it is from a perspective of iron sharpening iron, produced exceptionally accomplished human beings. That I think is the highest calling of Magic, and it's also super fun. I would say if you look at how Magic is right now, where you have things that are primarily designed for four-player singleton play, yes, it's probably hard to print Armageddon. Those people think that a card like Farewell, which is a six casting cost sorcery, is toxic and overpowered. I feel like it's a weird thing to think about Farewell if you're used to playing competitive one-on-one Magic, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a card you could play is what I would say when I see Farewell. Or I'm glad that card exists. I don't have to do this because that card exists, right?
Yeah,
So
basically, so long as they have to print commander cards into standard boosters, we will probably never get a invasion onslaught standard environment ever again. Which is sad because, those old standards and old extendeds were great formats, but that's kind of why pre-modern is here.
so
Um,
it
I
is
also kind of had a wild take, which is that if Wizards did print a pre-modern Horizons, one, this is not an unprecedented idea in the old school Magic community because the old school Magic community has a format called scrying. So old school is pre-modern's sort of godfather format. It's played with cards that are older than pre-modern.
and then
Um,
cuts off. The
and
pre-modern starts and then
yeah, it
modern.
cuts off in the pre-modern starts. And these cards are also weird and crazy. There's Power 9 and whatever, but you like are turboing out your like Juzam Jins and Sarah Angel, so it feels like old Magic. And they played it until they continue to play it. People who love this format continue to play it. But it has become for them stale, and guess what they did? They just made old school Horizons. They just took a bunch of cards that were printed like in the next couple of years and added it to the sub format. And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, Wizards is going to inject cards into the format." And I'm just like, "Great! Like, I want to inject cards into the format. Like, I love playing pre-modern,
I,
and then
I
on
think
other
it
days, I'm down to try."
I think
Um,
it doesn't matter, Lanny. We've been playing without Wizard supervision for several years, and if the community doesn't want to do it, they won't.
Exactly. Well, I'm just like exploring a hypothetical because
Yeah.
like one, it doesn't make any sense. It wouldn't make Wizards any money unless there was like a lot of pre-modern players. And if there was a lot of pre-modern players and it would make Wizards a lot of money, like as much as I'm not the capitalist on this call, that means that people would want this to happen. And
Oh
so
my God, this is a very interesting place to go, especially if you're going to put this on YouTube. But I just want to say two things in response to this, as I suppose the capitalist on the call, or at least the person who thinks about numbers a little bit. I know we've said in previous podcasts that math is dead, but there there are some macroeconomic mathematical things that we can think about. One, I have said this since the pandemic. There's no reason for the card game Flesh and Blood to exist. And that is not an indictment on whether or not Flesh and Blood is a good card game. I don't have an opinion about it, right? It shouldn't exist, though. The reason that Flesh and Blood exists is because Wizards decided to take the eye off the ball on something they were highly successful at, right? And Flesh and Blood basically fills in the niche of what was previously the Star City Tour, right? Players who were competitive, thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people would attend weekly tournaments multiple times per month, travel around the country, play on their own kind of like mini pro tour that Star City put up, and that catered to a very grinder, sweaty audience, and they were competitive. And people like me who were making part of our living from writing about Magic had a constant supply of deck lists that we could talk about, and dynamic metagames, and celebrities that were created out of that. for a variety of reasons, Wizards stopped supporting what was the lifeblood of that, and that's the only reason Flesh and Blood exists. If there were still a Star City tour, the people that if you go like the big Flesh and Blood tournaments are just on the Star City tour now, right? They just have them instead of what they had their Sunday Legacy tournament. So that's one. And the second thing is if you look at how Wizards is curating Standard, right? I actually think Standard's a pretty good format. I'm not sure. But coming out of Worlds, when you see 5 Izzet decks, 2 Teamer decks, which is basically Izzet with Badger Mole Cub, and then 1 anti-Izzet deck in the top 8, you might be cynical relative to the 2 rounds of Izzet bans that have been in Standard in the last 5 months. And I would say I don't have an opinion yet on whether or not the format changes were great or not, right? Like I like playing Standard, but I don't know. Maybe I was just in a zone of blissful ignorance. But I can tell you from an optics standpoint, because I don't think they were banning things to make the best format. If they actually tried to make the best format, they just wouldn't design these cards, right? But from an optics standpoint, it's a horrendous failure. You can't be like, I'm banning Izzet again, 5 Izzet decks or 7 Izzet decks in the next World's top 8. So like when you talk about like, oh, we're going to design things for a 4-player environment, and it's almost used to be you always wanted to design on a Mac. The reason you wanted to design on a Mac is because Adobe Photoshop or whatever was designed for Macs, and then it was ported to PCs. And so it's like, we design on the Mac because this is the platform it's supposed to be played on, right? I think that we're kind of in that zone right now. But before Adobe started designing for PCs, where it's like, well, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC. Sometimes the USB doesn't
Yeah,
fit
yeah. They're
vertically, and
they're
we have to have a
making
lot of bands.
they're making
Uh,
this 4-player game. It used to be that the people playing the 4-player game were adapting the 2-player game,
yeah,
the game pieces from the 2-player game, and now the 2-player game people are adapting the pieces made for the 4-player game. And
and
the pitch on
there's big
pre-modern
problems.
the pitch on pre-modern is that the pieces in pre-modern were designed for the 2-player game, and that's
So
kind of the fun
the
part.
pieces
I
for
think we've
pre-modern.
tangented enough to
Actually, there's a blog post by Mark Rosewater that came out recently that is oft cited in this zone. The pieces in pre-modern were designed for a 2-player strategy game. The pieces that we get in contemporary 2-person competitive constructed were designed for a 4-player social game, right? So take that for what you will. One
yeah.
is a strategy game, one is a social game. Now it's a licensed social game, which is an even different animal. They stopped making a strategy game like almost 10 years ago, right? So the fact that we get to still play a strategy game is novel, and it's like the icing on the cake, unless you're playing pre-modern, where we're designing with Adobe Photoshop on a Mac.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I would say. My God, double clicking versus right clicking is a different level of user experience.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. All right, this has been the Spy Colony YouTube crossover, even though the YouTube video is probably just going to be our faces because I didn't use any visual aids. But yeah, I'll try to put links in the description of the YouTube video for this, but for the podcast listeners, I want to get this out as quick as possible. But anyways, welcome to the format or re-welcome to the format. And
And if you're just a Spike Colony listener, I guess sorry we didn't talk about any decks this week.
I think they'll
I hope you
enjoy.
like our woke inclusive episode
I think they'll
of Spike
enjoy
Colony.
the
Next time I'll tell you how to sideboard with Dreadnought.
I mean, it's been fun talking about where the format is and where it's going, and for some players to refresh what it's about. And they're going. I do have the same message for the people who play pre-modern already, which is to welcome newcomers with open arms, and like I said, show them our ways, show them how we walk in the sand.
Bring an
Um,
extra deck to your meetups and leagues.
yep, absolutely. And
I usually bring like a Stompy because it's inexpensive. If somebody I don't know walks away with it, I'll be
yeah,
less hurt than if they walk away with all my reserve list cards. And it's easy to play, right? So they don't need to know weird arcane rules. We have a really good friend who's won multiple big tournaments in our local scene, who, when the first time he played against Hermit Feb, said, like, these are just all made up. Like, everything about the
yeah, yeah.
deck that you just won this tournament with was just made up. Like I just had to believe you when you said all of these
Yeah,
things.
yeah, that's
That's
gonna
not what
that's
the
look
card
that
said.
that's gonna happen when you play Premodern. But yeah, it's all over. You can follow us on Twitter, Five with Flores and Laney MTG. You can look for Spike Colony on all your podcast platforms and YouTube. You should check out everything the Duress crew does. They're a big crew in Massachusetts. There are counterparts to all this, specifically in Spain and then also Germany. So you can look for local discords. There are Facebook groups. They're kind of a little bit more strange and less focused sometimes, but
Ours is not strange or less focused.
definitely you can
Spike
jump
Colony
into
pre-modern.
Spy Colony Premodern on Facebook. But there are localized Facebook groups as well. But yeah, and if you drop a one-time or recurring donation on coffee, you can join our Discord. And then you can obviously DM us
Which
on anywhere you can find
honestly is
us.
the main place we hang out. I used to mostly hang out in the Facebook group, but I mean, I spend time every day in our Discord.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
so
yeah. So if you want to talk to the legendary Mike Flores, author of bangers such as "Who's the Beatdown" and "Philosophy of Fire," for the low, low price of a $5 donation to our coffee, you can at him all you want, and then he'll tell you how he really feels. Because in front of the camera, he's a real charming, nice guy, but behind cameras, he won't hesitate to tell you what he thinks about your ideas. Love
and
Spike Colony.
I've been banned from all the other social platforms that aren't the ones that we specifically run. Right.
There
So
you
I've been
go.
soft banned. Like Laney's just like, you just are not allowed to post in any of the public forums.
Yeah.
So if you want to know how I really feel, you can come to our Facebook group, which I still post in, just not as often. And our Discord, which is super active. It
I
is
also mentioned spikecolony.com has a tier list with deck lists. So if you want to check that out, that's a great place to go after you've kind of learned a little bit about the format. But yeah, we got to call it. It's been fun. I'm super excited for the future. And next time we talk on Spike Colony, we'll probably dig into some of the thing for engraved
A,
players
we should
about
talk about the contraption decks, and B, come on, SWB made the app. I thought that's what we were going to talk about, man. This is going to be the new data.therustcrew.com. This has all of our head-to-head matchup
it's
percentages.
like a
It's the most
three-rounder,
insane thing I've ever seen.
three-rounder in a small field. Anyways, love Spike Colony.
Game over.